Connecting to the Roots session ਦੇ ਇਤਿਹਾਸ ਕੇ ਪੰਨੇ 'ਚ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੰਨੇ ਜੁੜੇ ਦੇ हैं Shri Harbans Singh Sambial ji, a man who needs no introduction, a well-known and reputed academic and author from Jammu, known for his books, The Troubled Years on Maharaja Hari Singh ji. His next book was on Sadare Riyasat Dr. Karan Singh ji, and his third book, Sufi Satta or Samaj, talks about Sufism, its impact on India, and in particular to Jammu and Kashmir. He is currently completing his third book of the series on history of Jammu and Kashmir. Everybody, please welcome Shri Harbans Singh Sambial ji. Over to you, sir.
Namaskar. We know our topic today, and I'm really excited to introduce Jammu. Everybody knows Jammu, but Jammu, I won't go into the hoary past that is full of myths and legends. And myths and legends, they are not helpful to us to understand the present day Jammu. Jammu is a small place. If you look at the map, you'll find it's in one corner of the whole Jammu and Kashmir state. It is hilly area, arid, most of it, and therefore not very productive in agriculture and other trades. The result is that Jammu region, like all other hill states, whether they be of Kangra, Haripur, Nurpur, Mandi, Suket, etc., they do not generate revenue. Therefore, they are not very profitable to the conquerors. It's not that the conquerors have not ravished these states, but they have always found that it is not economically viable. The cost-benefit ratio is not acceptable to any conqueror of these hill states. The result is that most of them are, the connection is there?
Yes, sir, it's there. You please continue.
Okay. The hill states have been left to their own devices. Jammu has been overrun by many people from Lahore, but ultimately they have had to quit it because of these reasons, that maintaining an army to control Jammu has not been found viable. Maharaja Ranjit Singh also conquered this place, but he too found that it was not easy to control Jammu and its people, who had launched a guerrilla warfare under the leadership of Mian Tito. The result was that the casualties of the Sikh army and the revenue that the state generated was not commensurate to the effort that was being put in. So he found his own trusted man, General Gulab Singh, a Dogra from Jammu, and decided to hand over the responsibility of controlling Jammu. He did it very well. As a result, in 1822, Maharaja Ranjit Singh made him the Raja of Jammu. Please, Vikrant, can we come with a slide? So this is the map of the whole of Jammu and Kashmir, which evolved along the years. But Jammu, you can see, it's a small place in this map. It occupies only a very minuscule area. Now the challenge again before Gulab Singh was how to make his kingdom a viable kingdom. He could not move towards west. That was the area which was controlled by Maharaja Ranjit Singh, his benefactor. He could not move towards the south again. That was controlled by Maharaja Ranjit Singh, his benefactor. To the north was Kashmir. Again, Kashmir was controlled by Maharaja Ranjit Singh, his benefactor. Now there was only one place for him to go, and that was towards the east. That is Ladakh. Could we come up with a slide, please? Now this region, Ladakh, as you can see, it is on the east side of Jammu. And gradually, he took control of Ladakh. Before doing that, he had to overcome other challenges within Jammu. Jammu has always been divided. Hill states have always been warring among themselves. And Jammu consisted of many small states and principalities. Kishtwar was annexed, Bilawar, Basoli, Bhadarwa, before this campaign for Ladakh was launched. By 1834, Ladakh was conquered by General Zorawar Singh of Maharaja Gulab Singh's army. The next step was that the army moved towards Baltistan, towards Skardu. So these campaigns also, they began almost immediately after the Ladakh campaign. And by 1834, Baltistan, Skardu was conquered. Then the campaign, there was no campaign. Kashmir was annexed, or rather gained. Now, how that was gained, that is a different story, and we'll come to that as we proceed along. After securing Vale of Kashmir, there were more campaigns into Gilgit region. Gilgit had small principalities, a number of them, amongst them Hunza, Nagar, Punel, etc. Now, Hunza is at the extreme corner and is very close to present-day Xinjiang and Kashgar. So this is the state. Poonch was acquired in 1936. Though it was part of the state, but it became part of the Dogra dynasty only in 1936 after a long legal battle in the British courts. So this is the map which was secured by Maharaja Gulab Singh and his successors. But as we know that it wasn't easy. So what happened? I'll begin that narration right now after that. We can move on. Vikrant, thank you very much.
Sure, sir. Thank you.
Now, Ladakh, why was Ladakh conquered? Was it just because he had no other place and therefore he went to Ladakh? Going to Ladakh had a very valid reason. The reason was that Jammu had very little revenue, and much of the revenue could be earned if Ladakh is controlled. Ladakh was very important because both Kargil and Leh, they were part of Ladakh. And Kargil and Leh, they fell on Srinagar's route to both Kashgar as well as Lhasa. Ladakh was an entrepot where traders gathered from all over the region. People coming from Lhasa, they will also reach there. People coming from Kashgar after crossing 18,000 feet, they would also have to cross through Leh. And it was full of the very lucrative trade of Pashmina. Pashm, the raw wool. For acquiring Pashm, which was the raw material for the shawls which were in demand all over the world from Kashmir, this route had to be secured. So he got this benefit. Now it wasn't easy because there was another politics. much of it, East Indian India, at that time, it was not directly ruled by the British. East India Company was there. Now, East India was a trading company. It had only trading interests. In the beginning, East India was very happy that this campaign has been taken, is being undertaken, because it would upset the trade route, the traditional trade route from Lhasa to Leh and onward to Kashmir. Their interest was that if this region is troubled, if this route becomes unsafe, then traders from Lhasa would be using either the Rampur Bashar route, Rampur Bashar, which is in the modern Himachal Pradesh, or they will use the Almora route, Almora, which is in the present day Uttarakhand. Both were controlled by East India. They were happy in the beginning, but Zorawar Singh continued in his campaign. And when his campaigns continued and he controlled the trade routes which were going towards Rampur Bashar or towards Almora, then the British, they thought that now their interest is being hurt. They threatened also. The resident there, he wrote arrogantly rather that he would not allow anybody to molest the interest of Britain or anyone who's aligned to Britain. But nevertheless, Zorawar Singh said that this is the traditional route and this traditional route has to be reinstated and secured properly. So ultimately, since he had entered Western Tibet, entering Western Tibet meant that the trade route would be followed the Leh route only, the Lhasa Leh route. No trader would be allowed to go either to Almora or to Rampur Bashar. I'll just break here a little because these campaigns, they have in the modern times, they have generated some debate also. That who was the actual commander of these armies? The army in Ladakh was being commanded by General Zorawar Singh. He owed his loyalty only to Raja Gulab Singh at that time. He wasn't Maharaja then. Raja Gulab Singh of Jammu. Now Raja Gulab Singh owed suzerainty to Lahore Darbar. In 1834, Maharaja Ranjit Singh was alive. And Gulab Singh had sounded him that he has this campaign in his mind. And he wanted to ensure that his interests should not be clashing with his benefactor's interests. Maharaja Ranjit Singh gave him the go-ahead and he launched the attack. Now I'll finish this Ladakh story first and then move on to the next one. Zorawar Singh's campaign, they continued. In the meantime, he had moved towards Baltistan also, one campaign in Baltistan. But during this period between 1834 to 1841, December 1841, Zorawar Singh led 6 campaigns in Ladakh. First 3 years, every year there would be rebellion once the Dogra forces or the general moved back to Jammu. And again he had to lead another campaign. Thousands of soldiers laid down their lives in securing Ladakh. This fact must be kept in mind that the human cost of securing Ladakh for Jammu and now for India has been great and has been paid by the Dogras. In one of the rebellions, of the 5,000 soldiers, only 400 had survived. You can look at this massive cost which was paid in blood. But Zorawar Singh and Gulab Singh both persisted. In 1841, Zorawar Singh again moved towards Western Tibet. He reached Mansarovar. He crossed the source of Indus. He reached the source of Satluj and crossed Mansarovar. In 1841, the Battle of Mantalai took place. Now, for the people who do not remember, let me remind that Tibet was always a part of China. Lhasa was part of China, and the Chinese army was stationed there. Rudok and another place, Gar, I believe, these were the places where they were headquartered in this part of Tibet. Zorawar Singh defeated them, the Chinese army, at Mantalai, and captured their standard. This standard, this flag was captured by what is known today as the 4th Jack Rifles. At that time, it was known as Fateh Shivji. This was one of the first regiments which was raised by Raja Gulab Singh. This flag is today at Jabalpur in the regimental center of Jack and is displayed every year on the Mantalai day, the day it was captured. Now, what he did, probably one can say a fatal error, or sometimes your destiny draws you to a particular direction. He had the option of moving back because winter was approaching. But for some reason, unexplicable reason, I would say, he persisted. He was confident that before the snowfall, before winter arrives, he would be able to reach Lhasa and take control of Lhasa. But fate had decreed something else. He was caught in the snowstorm, long one. The supply lines had been stretched to the farthest point. Winter had taken its toll. People, most of the soldiers, they were suffering from pneumonia, frostbite, and totally exhausted. It was very easy for the Chinese Tibetan army to slaughter the Dogra forces. The whole of the army perished there. Except for a few people, nobody returned from that place. At that time, Gulab Singh was already, 1841 means that 1839, Maharaja Ranjit Singh had passed away. And after Maharaja Ranjit Singh's death, the atmosphere, political atmosphere of Lahore was very toxic. It was a poisonous pond, and you needed extreme agility and statesmanship to wade through that cesspool. Raja Gulab Singh, he decided that he would launch a campaign. But unlike the earlier campaigns, this was a different kind of campaign. It was a diplomatic campaign this time. A good general, a good leader should recognize the limits of his power. He stops where he knows that he can no further, it won't be gainful for him to move forward. Gulab Singh had realized that. He moved towards Ladakh, but this time he opened negotiations with the Chinese, the Tibetans. Now, Chinese too had a problem at that time. If Gulab Singh was worried about what was happening in Lahore and how it was going to impact him and his family, because of the eminent position that Gulab Singh and his both brothers they occupied in Lahore, that had invited the jealousy bordering on hatred of many lesser Sikh Sardars. So he had to watch his back also. China had its own problems. Imperial China of that period was already in the first Opium War with England. Imperial China was already decaying, and the war was about to expose the totality of decay and weakness. So they had a choice. They had to make a choice that either they should defend this part of their empire, or they should focus on defending their mainland. So they opted to compromise here and focus their army for the Opium Wars. The treaty that took place, that was the Treaty of Chashul. And it's very interesting, and many people from Punjab still challenge it. The treaty was between the representative of Imperial China, Lhasa, Lhasa's representative, and on this side, the Lahore Darbar, Raja Gulab Singh and his representative. It's a little bit complex, but actually the treaty was between Tibet and Ladakh. To make it very simple, the treaty was between Tibet and Ladakh. But Tibet had owed its overlordship was with Imperial China, so that actual treaty was with China. And on this side, the treaty was with Lahore Darbar, since Gulab Singh was still part of the Sikh Empire. But the treaty clearly mentions that Tibet, China will respect the interests of Maharaja of Punjab and Raja Gulab Singh. It does not just say that the interests of Maharaja of Punjab. It clearly mentions that the interests of Raja Gulab Singh. That means the treaty itself had made distinction between Maharaja of Punjab and Raja Gulab Singh. According to this treaty, it was agreed that the traditional trade route between Lhasa and Leh would be respected, would be restored. All trade of Tibet from Lhasa to Kashmir or any other part of India, that would go through Leh. So Ladakh's revenue was secured. It was also secured that the trade officially does not go towards Bashar or towards Almora, that is to East India Company. It comes to Jammu. And Jammu, since it owed its sovereignty to Punjab, naturally it would give its annual tribute to Lahore Darbar. So this is the arrangement. And as far as the boundary is concerned, it was simply said that both parties would respect the traditional boundaries. Now, what those traditional boundaries are in mountains, you can just imagine. The traditional boundaries normally are in the mountains, the watershed determines where the boundary begins and where the boundary ends. But rivers keep changing. Mountain rivers, they keep changing their course. So the boundaries also could fluctuate here and there. This problem has continued to this date. It dogs us even today. Attempt was made to demarcate boundary by the Britishers in 1855. One Mr. W.H. Johnson, he was deputed a surveyor to demarcate this boundary. He worked between 1885 to 1865, but actually what he demarcated was not acceptable to the British. Because that's another story that Maharaja Ranveer Singh, he had developed many other interests and he had conquered many other places which are now close to Kashgar. The Karakoram route he had secured, and he had also secured the Skardu Gilgit route and incorporated a lot of land to his kingdom. But that is separate, that came later. But let us stop this Ladakh story here. Ladakh secured, revenue secured, all Pasham, all trade, tea, etc., that would move from Lhasa to Leh, Leh to Kargil, Kargil to Kashmir, or would come to Jammu, and from Jammu onwards via Sialkot, it would come down to the plains of Punjab. But another game, a very significant game, which was being played at Lahore. It hurts people when I say it, but it has to be said that unfortunately the successors of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, they were small men. They neither had the vision, nor did they have the capability of controlling such a heterogeneous empire which Maharaja Ranjit Singh had built. Maharaja Ranjit Singh had built a coalition, an alliance of various tribes, various communities, various ethnicities. The Sikhs were there, of course, but so were the Pathans. So were other local Muslims of Multan, the Dogras. And the most trusted of his generals and officers were the two Dogra brothers, Gulab Singh and Dhyan Singh. Now, jealousy and state interest, they do not go together. Personal jealousies have played in the state interest. But this is how this happened. At the deathbed, Maharaja Ranjit Singh had secured a promise from Dhyan Singh that he will loyally serve his successor, Maharaja Khadak Singh, his eldest son. He also made Khadak Singh promise, take an oath, that he will obey, he would work on the advice of Dhyan Singh. But unfortunately, what happens is when somebody acquires power, he doesn't want to share it. And by not sharing power, there is always a friction, and friction leads to so many complications. The result was, it is alleged that Dhyan Singh got one of his trusted men, Chet Singh, murdered. But they got Dhyan Singh murdered. After Dhyan Singh's death, his son Hira Singh, he was made the Wazir. And Hira Singh, he was not, actually he was too young, too immature to be shouldering that kind of responsibility. He fell out with his Chacha, Raja Suchet Singh, and Suchet Singh was killed. When Suchet Singh was killed, there were other family members also of Gulab Singh who fell with him. And finally, Hira Singh himself was eliminated by the Sikh Sardars. Now, the grudge which Gulab Singh bore against this Darbar was that he had lost his two brothers, Dhyan Singh, Suchet Singh. He had lost his nephew, Hira Singh. And he had lost his sons, Udham Singh, who died unfortunately, along with Khadak Singh's son, Naunihal, while they were returning after the death of cremation of Khadak Singh in an accidental fall of a parapet. That can be condoned, it's understood, it was an accident. But Sohan Singh, the eldest son of Gulab Singh, he too was killed in Lahore as a vindictive step. Gulab Singh requested that the body of Sohan Singh should be returned to him. And the Sardar refused to hand over that body. Now modern people, they understand the meaning of closure. Closure of a death, closure of a tragedy, that is considered absolutely essential. Gulab Singh was never comfortable after that. But a number of games continued there. People wanted Gulab Singh back because they were unable to control. Gulab Singh was not willing. Azizuddin, Fakir Azizuddin, one of the most respected Muslims of that era, Foreign Minister of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, advisor, close advisor, a very sophisticated, polished diplomat. He requested Gulab Singh that you come and take over the prime ministership here. The answer of Gulab Singh was that he wants to live a few years longer. All people, all his family members, they had laid down their lives. Only 3 members from the next generation survived. His youngest son, Ranveer Singh, Dhyan Singh's 2 sons, Jawahar Singh and Moti Singh, who fortunately were not in Lahore, otherwise they too might have been killed. He refused to come there. But then the Khalsa army, they intervened. Khalsa army had a problem. Very brave soldiers, there's no doubt about that, their soldiering ability. But they had evolved a very strange kind of a system. They had a panchayat. There was no commandant of the army. Commandant may be there, but a parallel authority was there in the form of the panchayat of the soldiers. They would elect their 5 members, and those 5 members, they decided the military course. These punches, Gulab Singh knew that they were a destructive force as well. They prevailed upon Gulab Singh to come to Lahore. Once he was brought as a prisoner, but he had managed to go back, find his way out of that ticklish situation. But then he was ultimately made the prime minister, given the wazarat that you shoulder the responsibility. But the fact is, let me put this question to all those who are listening, that a person who has lost almost the whole of his family in Lahore, why should he help Lahore? There is no good reason for him to help Lahore, because he knew that even if the Lahore Sardars prevail over the British, they are not going to remain united. Everyone thinks that he is more capable. He should be the ruler. He should be the prime minister. So the game of intrigue and murders that had begun, that would go on and on. Evil has no end. Once evil has been given a free rein, you never know where it's going to end. So he managed very cleverly through all this. And in 1846, I would say that it was his wisdom, his cleverness, that he survived that period of 1846. And when the Britishers and the Sikhs had their first Anglo-Sikh war, he remained outside the ambit of that war. He is accused of being a traitor. His conduct is said to be perfidious. But looking at this background, I leave it to all of you to judge that how could he have, or why would he have done anything. And even more than that, I would just bring to your attention one book by Baba Satinder Singh. If you can see this book, The Jammu Fox. This book, there is hardly a page when an invective has not been used for Gulab Singh. Whenever the name of Gulab Singh comes, if nothing worse, at least the word cunning is always there. So in the cesspool which Lahore had become, unless you were clever, unless you were cunning, unless your survival instinct was very strong, I don't think anybody would have survived. Now, Satinder Singh Bawa, he himself writes that the Raja decided that the consequences of such a course would be suicidal to him. In the event of success, the suddenly reinvigorated Sikhs, who generally abhorred the Jammu chief's special status in their kingdom, might then turn upon him. On the other hand, if the Sikhs lost, Gulab Singh stood the risk of incurring British retribution. So if he had helped, he would have incurred the retribution of the British. If the Sikhs had won, then it is for sure that the reinvigorated Sikhs too would have eliminated him sooner or later, because they did not like his presence or success in Lahore, the importance which he had attained during Maharaja Ranjit Singh's time. It was in these conditions that the Treaty of Amritsar was signed in 1846. And there's another I only picked up two of the books for reference for this brief history. The other is Resourceful Fakirs. I recommend this book to everybody to read this book by Fakir Azazuddin. He is the great grandson of the Fakir who was Maharaja Ranjit Singh's advisor. These two books I pick up because Bawa's book, The Jammu Fox, has everything negative about Gulab Singh to say. He begins at least with negativity, but ends up saying that nothing can be proved against Gulab Singh. Azazuddin's book is important because it extols the virtues of the Fakir brothers in the court of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. But if we read carefully, we find that he knows what he has done. He knows the virtue of Gulab Singh, and he also knows the reasons why he acted, how he acted. He writes that Lord Harding, when the treaty was ready, Lord Harding explained that what he had done, why he had given this territory to Gulab Singh. He had imposed war in Delhi on the Sikhs for waging this war. War indemnity at that point of time was a norm. It was only after the Second World War that nations realized that by penalizing a lost country, a defeated country, you whet the appetite of their people to seek revenge at a future date. So it's better to reconstruct those devastated countries, as America did with Germany and Japan. But earlier, till the First World War, war indemnity was a norm. So Britishers had imposed a war indemnity on Sikhs, which they were unable to pay, and therefore they had to forfeit the lands, the hill lands, and the land between Byas and Chenab. Ravi. Since they could not pay or did not want to pay, all of them, they said that he is part of the empire and therefore this money should be secured from him. But since Gulab Singh had not participated in the war, much of his territory he had gained away from Maharaja Ranjit Singh. Therefore, those territories belonged to him. And Britishers did not impose indemnity upon him, but asked him to pay the indemnity on behalf of the Sikhs, which he paid and secured these lands as well as Kashmir. This is how Vikrant, the Kashmir in 1846, that became part of the Jammu and Kashmir state. After that, the exertions of Maharaja Ranbir Singh, they annexed Gilgit. And there are treaties with all these small feudatory principalities, the Hunza, Yasin, etc. By 1890, the state was complete. That state which existed till 1947 was the one which was basically, the foundation was laid by Maharaja Gulab Singh and consolidated by Maharaja Ranbir Singh. So this is a very brief story of the making of Jammu and Kashmir. There are other studies which go on that how these are geostrategically very important areas and they should not have been lost to us, or how the British manipulated 1947 in a way that these areas, they went to Pakistan with whom they were sure that they will have better relations rather than the democratic Nehru and other Congress leaders of the time. That's another story, another chapter. But for today, I think this is all that I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for such an insightful session. Today, we have learned so much about our own Dogra history. I'm sure we all are intrigued to come back next Saturday and to hear more about our history from you. I would now like to open the forum to audience. If there is any question on today's session they would like to ask, sir, please, this is the time you can come up with your questions.
Can I comment briefly, Lalit, if it
Sure,
is in
sir.
order?
Yeah,
Because I'm
sure.
sorry, I did say that I will be leaving early,
Ji.
but I must congratulate the speaker, Harbans Singh ji. Such an exciting picture you portrayed before us. So I could not leave. I wanted to listen more. As a student of history who studied the Punjab history until my graduation before migrating to Britain, I have no doubts. The interpretation from your side, as I always say, the history has like a coin, have both sides. Who reads, who interpret it. When we are sitting in Punjab, sir, reading the Punjab history, Gulab Singh and Dogra, the intervention in the Lahore is seen as the traitors coming in, right? You also use the word briefly,
Yes, yes.
but that
Yes.
is what the part of the history we
I
were
know that.
taught, right? But as I said, that I believe that history always have who writes, who reads, who interpret. And you interpret going back into that era mentally, see what is the social, economic, and political conditions were in which somebody was working. As a political activist now, I can see the role of the Dogras at that time. Loyalty, but felt betrayed. Then it is natural, the reaction from the Dogras at that time. I must say, and you might disagree with it, I felt that Lahore was taken over by one sector or section of the Sikh community. And they felt bad that non-Jat Sikhs coming into power and controlling it. That was the war between when Khadik Singh Bhatt died and all that. I don't want to go into history. I'm not a historian. I'm a student, not like yourself, a philosopher or scholar. I congratulate you, Lalit. Very interesting series you have started. I would like to know the future ones. If you could send me the details, I will do my best as a student to learn more. But I wanted to congratulate Harban Singh ji for such a thorough and very clear and plain language message, the portraying of the history of that day. And I congratulate you, and I'm personally thankful for your contribution. I hope not only the Dogra community will learn their history, the rest of the world students who are interested in that region will also understand. Your contribution, your books, and your contribution, I already requested Lalit to send me the transcript of your talk today. I will personally will love any interaction with you so that I can be a learned boy. I still call myself boy, but also will help me to work with Lalit and other community members from Jammu and Kashmir to fight for the rights where we wanted them to go back and also have the same rights in Britain, so that we can continue working together with the knowledge of our history and culture background so that we can take it forward. Once again, thank you very much. I wanted to say those words so that before I leave, my apologies for leaving now because I have to go to another meeting. This is the problem with Zoom nowadays. Everybody thinks you have nothing else to do. This is what you have to. So I'm sorry, and really, once again, I heard you before, but it was great. I can't find the words that I could not leave. I said to Lalit that I will be leaving, but I could not leave. So interesting, great contribution. I really amazed, and I look forward to be listening to you again in the future meeting. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Viren sir.
Thank you.
so
Thank
much.
you. Thank
So
you.
much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
So from the audience, may we have any questions, please? If anybody would like to, I think Priyanka, you had a question.
Am I audible?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Actually, these are the things I heard personally for the very first time. और मैं क्या question पूछूं? मुझे तो लग रहा है अभी मुझे बहुत सारा homework करना चाहिए. सर ने जो बातें बताई हैं, really insightful, very thought provoking and eye opening. सर बस एक question आपसे पूछूंगी, जिस like जो आज का scenario है, जो कंपोजिट कल्चर की अगर मैं बात करूं, हमारे जम्मू का जो कंपोजिट कल्चर है हैज बीन गिवन अ पेरिफेरल एग्जिस्टेंस ड्यू टू स्क्यूड पॉलिटिक्स ऑफ द रीजन. सो आई थिंक आपका जो पर सर मतलब आपका क्या थॉट रहेगा, क्या आपका पॉइंट रहेगा कि हमारा जो हिस्टोरिकल बैकग्राउंड है, वी एज अ पीपल ऑफ जम्मू हैव नो आइडिया, लाइक हम अभी सीख रहे हैं, पढ़ रहे हैं, समझ रहे हैं. तो क्या ये भी एक रीजन है that our culture is degrading or sidelining day by day, that we have no idea about our history?
देखो इसमें प्रॉब्लम ये आती है कि कोई भी कल्चर जो है उसकी सर्वाइवल के लिए बहुत सारी चीजें जो है वो जरूरी होती है.
Yes, sir.
पहली चीज है उसकी लैंग्वेज.
Okay.
If you heard Dr. Karan Singh Saab's interaction, you would have noticed that he also lamented this fact. And he, in passing, he referred to the fact that a mother, if she is not a Dogra, then it's a problem for a child to learn that language.
Yes, yes.
Now, I know it personally because I was raised basically in Bhilai. That was the place where I actually grew conscious of the world around me. My sister is 4 years older to me. And we made it a point, I don't know whether we did it deliberately or it came naturally to us, that whenever we would go to the market in any shop, we would converse in Dogri.
Okay.
And everybody used to be perplexed that what language are you speaking? So it gave me very satisfaction that at least they don't think that Dogri is Punjabi. They were discernible enough to make the distinction between Dogri and Punjabi. In my case, I was married into Punjab. Now, Punjabis are notorious that they will teach their spouse to speak their language and they will not learn the language of the spouse. So when my children were born, that was a problem. So I decided that they will be taught Hindi as a first language and they will pick up whatever language they like gradually. Now both of them, they cannot speak Dogri, they cannot speak Punjabi, but they understand both Dogri as well as Punjabi. Now this was Dr. Karan Singh's lamentation also, that his grandchildren cannot speak, his sons can speak. Sons can speak because the Maharani was great. She had come at such a young age, tender age of 13. She learned Dogri and she used to speak Dogri extremely well. And their children learned, their grandchildren couldn't. That is a problem. But let me assure you one thing, that there is a lot of good work going on in Dogri. Last year, it so happened that I was asked to do a piece on Dogri language, Dogri literature. Somebody had a brainwave in the Tribune that an article, a supplement should be brought out about the regional languages. So when I started studying what had lately happened in Dogri, I find that there's a lot of work going on. And I hesitate sometimes to publicly speak in speech. When I'm to speak formally, I am hesitant to speak. Not that I am unable to speak Dogri. I speak Dogri fairly well. Priyanka knows it.
Yes, yes.
But my problem is that when I listen to the proper Dogri, I realize that my Dogri is more Hindi-based Dogri. My accent might be Dogra, but my vocabulary is Hindi-based. Because officially I learned my first language was English and the second language was Hindi. Hindi later on I acquired more and more. I know a lot about Hindi literature. But Dogra literature also I started imbibing in the late 60s. And I'm proud to say that when Dr. Karan Singh launched that movement for including Dogri into the 8th schedule, I was part of that. Though separately, we did our best to inspire Kangra people to say that their language was Dogri. But politics played, they did not come to accept this proposition. The result is that their language, Pahari, which they try to promote, is nowhere in official papers, whereas Dogri, at least, it is there in the 8th schedule. There are courses for Dogri, and people can learn and have gainful employment also after learning Dogri. We need to generate more and more opportunities. I think the problem is that we think that Jammu city is Jammu.
No, yeah.
Jammu city is not Jammu.
No, exactly.
When you listen to the Dogri of somebody from Udhampur, their sensibility is different. Their vocabulary is different. मिठास है उनकी बोली च साढ़े सांबे दी जेहड़ी बोली है असते इनके डंडे मारने हैं कई बारी. We are harsh because you see topography that determines so many things. Topography decides your influences your character, your state of mind. उन सारे कंटी जेड़े ना कंटी च के होना कंटी च होना करने इन्ने बड़े बड़े कंडे होंदे ने चमड़े दा सोल जेड़ा ना it can pierce through that sole of a boot. As for fruit दे नाम पर साढ़े कोल जेड़े ना देसी बैर होंदे बेर खाओ सुके दे बेर भी सुकाइए रख लेंदे हैं ताकि बाद में जेड़े ना खंदे रहो. Whenever I used to come to Samba, say sometime in April or May, I would go back with an air bag full of bear, dry bear. And I was amazed that all my friends used to enjoy them. And it's a poor man's fruit. But that is all we had. So language is determined by the topography, by the environment in which it is flourishing, and by the economic conditions. Now, economic conditions at Jammu are such that it has more interaction with Punjab. So Punjab has infiltrated Jammu. Since the trade and commerce is focused in Jammu, therefore, the language of Jammu city is also influenced by Punjabis and Punjab. Okay. That happens, that can survive only if we have pride and continue to write and give proper respect to those people who write. That's the unfortunate part. The people, a poet or a novelist or a dramatist, he has to be encouraged. If we don't buy his book, how does he survive? I always tell people that don't gift me a book. I'll buy it. Because I know that an author is encouraged by only if his book is sold. So that is it, if it answers your question, Priyanka.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience would like to ask any question? Vivek, Dr. Vivek Kaul is here from Oxfordshire, UK. Can we, sorry, Dr. Vivek, you are mute. You would have to unmute yourself. Still mute. Dr. Vivek Kaul, you're still on mute. Yeah, now you are.
अच्छा सर नाइस टू सी यू सर. आपके बारे में काफी सुना है ललित जी से, और जब भी हम पार्लियामेंट जाते थे ब्रिटेन में, यहाँ पे इंडिया की तरफ बोलने की, आप ही की बुक्स लेके थोड़ा सा रिसर्च करते थे.
Thank you.
जो भी पीरियड है गुलाब सिंह, जोरावर सिंह जी का, और इट वाज ग्रेट. यू राइट अ वेरी अनबायस्ड हिस्ट्री लिखते हैं आप, which is such a pleasure to read. तो से क्या सवाल पूछे आपको, तो आप तो सभी सब कुछ जानते हैं सर। सर जोरावर सिंह के बारे में सर अच्छी तरह कुछ बोलिए सर, वो कैसे इट सीम्स उनका वो पैशन कहाँ से आता था जो उन्होंने इतना, जो तिब्बत तक पहुंच गए, मानसरोवर तक पहुंच गए, मतलब गिलगित बाल्टिस्तान तक पहुंच गए, वो क्या मतलब व्हाट वाज ही पर्सन लाइक? बिकॉज हम जनरली बोलते हैं कि हिंदूज आर नॉट एक्सपेंशनिस्ट, but he disproved it. He was like a Napoleon of India. He went
Yes,
to
of
those
course.
places and took them on,
Yes.
signed the treaties. He was a very proactive. जैसे हम इंडियन आर्मी आजकल डिफेंसिव बन गई है since 1947. He was a very offensive general.
Yes,
तो
he was.
तो क्या था उसके बारे में थोड़ा सा बहुत कम मालूम है।
No, I think aggression was ingrained in him. He, for a very short period, he was arrested by the Sikhs. And he was put in a prison, a fort, at a place called Dera Gopipur. That is in present-day Himachal Pradesh. It is right on the bank of Beas River. Just before the Beas descends into the plains, Dera Gopipur, he decided that he will not remain a prisoner. And he jumped from the parapet of the fort into the flooded river. And you can imagine the force of the river,
Water. Wow.
the hills. He swam across and vanished. And then he reached Jammu. In Jammu, he joined the army of Kishtwar, Raja of Kishtwar.
Wow.
From where later on Gulab Singh picked him up. Now, what you say, why, how he was so proactive and aggressive, that is something which was a gift of God. You cannot train people for that. Traveling at more than 11,000 feet, 45 miles to 60 miles per day.
Babre.
He did it 6 times, he and his army. Because before launching his campaign into Ladakh, the whole army that was recruited, that was put at Kishtwar and trained there for many months for the campaigns in the mountains. So after properly training them for the mountains, he began his campaign. Now imagine, look at the army today. When I look at the picture, the kind of equipment they have, the protection they have, and the conveyance they have. The only things that Dogras had were their 2 legs, few ponies, and then later on they also learned to use the yak of Ladakh. And with these meager equipment, they campaigned for so many years. That is something you cannot explain it. I cannot explain that, how, from where he got this spirit. But those people were extraordinary. Number one, they had to be strong to survive. It was a toxic atmosphere, as I said earlier. In a toxic atmosphere, you have to be very strong, not only physically, but mentally also. You need great strength of character, willpower to overcome all these hurdles. Zorawar Singh had all that. The only time he erred in his judgment was when he went deep into
Mansarovar.
Mansarovar. He crossed Mansarovar. That was a fatal mistake.
That too in December. December mein Mansarovar must have been treacherous.
Yes. Yes, sometimes I say that fate invites you to your death. Destiny invites you to your death.
December mein to even Jammu is so different.
Of course it is. It is.
God, he was, such a great man. I wish somebody makes a biopic on Zorawar Singh. He deserves a Hollywood or a Bollywood biopic. And you should be the writer because you know so much about him.
I can help somebody. These people can raise funds, and I can give you a few people who can produce it. I know that who are good at it.
Yes.
But, in fact, I have been talking for the past 10 years about a movie, I would prefer this. You have given a new idea about Zorawar Singh's biopic. That's
नहीं
very
होनी चाहिए.
Yes, yes.
The other subject is the retreat from Punch. State force. This is the only example, one rare example in the history of the world, where military forces, they retreated, and along the retreat they brought back about 20,000 refugees with them. They escorted those refugees to safety. You remember, so much is made of Dunkirk, the Second World War.
Yes, Dunkirk, yeah.
And the role played by Churchill in rescuing.
And small boats, fishermen, small boats, everybody helped. Yes, Dunkirk spirit.
Yes. They're so very well picturized in a number of places.
Movies.
But nobody ever escorted civilians to safety. Dogra forces were the only example in the history of the world where they risked their lives so that refugees, civilians, could be brought back to safety, and that to 20,000 refugees. It's not easy.
This is 1947, isn't it?
That's 1947.
Yeah, the famous Punch, what is it called? The Punch rescue.
That's another thing. You see, the trouble is that why Dogra history gets distorted. Dogra history gets distorted that wherever you have to praise the state forces, everybody is reluctant in India.
Yes.
Particularly the Indian Army.
Yes.
Because the Indian Army would like to take all the credit for itself and not give any credit to the JK forces, though.
Yes. I read their history. They are very dismissive about Dogras. Like वो कह रहे थे कि बादामी बाग में छुपे हुए थे, राशन ला रहे थे. They talk very despairingly about Dogras. Yes. और यहाँ कुछ में भी they talk about Atma Ram, General Atma Ram and all that.
Pritam Singh. This thing, I think this can continue for as long as we wish.
नहीं, I request you, गांधीनगर में जाके कुछ 15-20 खजूरिया और पकड़ के उनको बोलो भैया जोरावर सिंह पे एक बायोपिक बनानी है और पठानिया गांधीनगर जाना है आपको, बस मान जाएंगे वो. Zorawar Singh really deserves a biopic because he was a Napoleon of this part of the world.
I appreciate your suggestion, but the problem is I don't think we'll be able to find an answer for that.
Yes.
I have my serious doubts.
So we are lucky to have Major General Govardhan Singh Jamwal sir with us also today.
Wow.
That's great.
I think I see a hand. I don't know if he wants to ask or say something. Sir, would you like to say some words?
Yes. Firstly, I must compliment you and Harbans Singh ji. Of course, it was a wonderful discourse. In fact, he has cleared many doubts. And you can see the people are coming with doubts even in London. And you know what must be happening here. I wish we had more of these discourses. And as far as the Dogra history is concerned, it is really totally distorted. I would call it now these days, they call it distillery. It is not a history, it is
Destroyed.
And General Zorawar Singh has been the least publicized. Hardly any book written on him.
Nope.
And now latest you must have seen some people are only posting him as a Sikh general, not a Dogra general.
Exactly.
Why don't you, we don't say he belonged to the Sikh army, we give the credit, but let us not take him out of the Dogra dynasty at all. That is not a very good thing. And as far as the Dogra history, now you see the invasion of Jammu and Kashmir by Pakistan, all this was a British plan to attack. When Maharaja will not accede, he will be made to annex the state to Pakistan. This is what was done. And Harbans Singh ji said very correctly and I am a general of the Indian Army. I am the last general of the J&K state, and the only one in the Indian Army. And Indian Army is my army. But he is right. I have seen those days. I was present in Srinagar on 22nd October when the attack came.
Wow. Wow.
And those 5
Amazing.
days of attack have been not included in the books. Of
No.
course, the Ministry of Defense, Government of India includes, and there is a complete information available. If Brigadier Rajinder Singh had not blown up the Uri Bridge, they would have been in Srinagar in 10 hours.
In the same day. Same day. Yeah.
Same day. And the airport would have been also occupied.
Yes.
And they have completely omitted. They only say the people, the state army didn't fight in Muzaffarabad. You know what is the problem? Unfortunately, in fact, the biggest lesson of the 47 war is a treachery. Treachery by the British against the Maharaja, against the J&K state, and treachery by the Muslims
Yes.
of the state forces against their own brethren, against
Yes,
their own
They killed the Hindu officers in Muzaffarabad.
midnight. I tell you today, as a general of the army, I mean, I can tell the whole world, if those Muslims had not killed
Killed.
their own Hindus,
Hindu.
or if Colonel Narayan Singh, who loved his troops, he never distinguished between Hindu and Muslim, and he was asked that, do you trust your Muslims? He said, yes, I trust them, Hindus. If I were a commanding officer there, I would have said the same thing. Because we had not served, we had not learned from the history. I taught in the Indian Military Academy. In fact, the V.K. Singh was my student, the army chief.
Ji.
I never told him that when there is a problem between Hindu and Sikhs, be careful. Don't test the Muslim too much. Keep him back. Put another man, you will not have to regret later. In fact, he had not learned this. This was not taught in the IMA. This was not taught in the institutions. It is not even taught today.
Yes.
And even from Muzaffarabad, we didn't learn. You know, I was military secretary with the President of India, and I was military secretary with Indira Gandhi when she became Prime Minister. And 2 Sikhs were put on the guard. And 2 days later, the commander puts a file to Indira Gandhi. Sorry, we have put these 2 boys. We want to remove them. She said no. And next day, those 2 killed her. We had not learned from history.
No.
And that's what happened. Then even now, we have not learned that. In fact, there's a very big lesson. It was a treachery by the British, and the British were told how to attack Kashmir. If you do not make the Muslims defect and kill their Hindus, General Scott, who was my chief of staff, he left, he had told Mountbatten, you will never reach Srinagar even 1 month if this battalion fights. And for that,
Yes.
you will have to make your Muslims kill the Hindus, then you have no problem, and you will reach. That's what happened. But in spite of that, the did not allow them to reach the valley. Brigadier Rajinder Singh, with 100 men,
Yes.
they could never reach. Now, our history says, most of the books say that after Muzaffarabad was captured, the tribals and others started looting till 26th. And then they reached Srinagar, 25th, and then they looted Baramulla. It's not a fact.
Yes. Yes.
The road was still occupied by Brigadier Rajinder Singh till 2 o'clock in the morning of 27th, and within 6 hours, the Indian Army landed. That road was not free to reach the airport. So he protected the airport. He ensured that the accession was done on the 26th evening. He was still fighting. The road was still blocked. There was no enemy on that road. Of course, they had bypassed and reached along the hill mountain tracks into Baramulla. but that is, they could not loot and put anything in their vehicle. That only happened on 26th morning. And then the Indian Army found how strong they were.
Oh,
Who
yes.
was stopping them? This Brigadier Rajinder Singh and 100 Dogras, and the Indian Army paid the price. The commanding officer was killed. They suffered many casualties.
Colonel Ranjit Rai, he died in Patan, yes.
Wonderful man, very. But
Yeah,
he
yeah.
was,
My daddy was 14 years old and he was in Srinagar in the Biscu school. So they say Ranjit Rai ji came to the Pratap Park, and it seems he was a very Anglo-Indian kind of person. He spoke in English. He says, I will save you people. Now I am going myself to Patan to save you people. He was talking in English. He gave a small speech to people of Kashmir. My daddy was a small boy then. He says, I was in that crowd. A great person, daddy said.
actually, history has been totally distorted, and nobody could write. Even the good books were not written. So long Nehru and Indira Gandhi were living, the books were not written. Now
Yes.
they have come out, and we hope that now we'll bring the truth out. And this is one of the efforts, and it was wonderful. And Harbans ji तो डोगरी भी बोली बड़ी शैल, I think.
Sir, General Saab, just a small thing I want to ask you, if others permit me. Jesse, Brigadier Sen has written a lot about the cylinder in the thread. Why does he miss about General Harbaksh Singh, who became general later on? उसके बारे में उन्होंने कुछ ज़्यादा बोला नहीं है. Harbaksh Singh was his deputy in Srinagar.
In fact, that history book is also distorted.
होगी, definitely होगी.
Because that was one of the first book written, and at that time the writing of the history was a little different. And he wrote whatever he liked. There was no question, nobody asked. And the army was never allowed to even read a book. I became a general. I have studied total world wars, World War I, II, history of America, independence, and I know the backward history of the British nation. But I don't know nothing about my state, my country.
Yes, yes.
We were not allowed to read. There was nothing. And I was myself, what you call the registrar of the Army University. And I laid down the courses, but we never told them what was Panipat battle. Nothing. That was the problem. And that when these stories were being written, books were written, that was one of the few first ones. So they wrote whatever there was no question. Now people do ask, they challenge. And now some real things are coming out. Like Harbans Singh ji has done a lot of work.
No, he's a scholar.
Yes, and I think, like Lalit and you people are, I think, encouraging people here also. Still in Jammu, Dogras, they're not bothered. They're more workers. They will create history but not write history.
I know.
Those who write history, they are never kind to those about whom they write. That is the problem also. But it's a wonderful effort, and I enjoyed listening. In fact, Lalji, I would like to have a video of this whole.
Sir, sure, we'll send you the recording. It'll be a pleasure.
Yes, I'm working on this history of Brigadier Rajendra Singh now. I hope it should be ready within a year or so.
ललित जी, ये जनरल साहब के बारे में भी एक स्पीच होनी चाहिए after 2-3 weeks. We would love to hear him.
I was just about to come on that.
So many questions in our mind.
Bilkul, we'll speak about this.
In Jammu?
Sir, अभी तो Zoom पे ही करेंगे.
Zoom पे करेंगे. जम्मू में तो हम आपके घर आएंगे वो सांबल वांबल खाने के लिए.
अंबल.
और खट्टा मीट.
नहीं, यहाँ पर जम्मू में भी हालत खराब ही है. कश्मीर में तो बहुत ज्यादा खराब है, पर जम्मू भी खराब है. और पता नहीं, वैसे डोगरास बड़े डिसिप्लिन्ड है, इस मामले में थोड़ा डिसिप्लिन कमजोर हो गया.
Sir, they are the most hospitable people in the world. डोगरास के कोई मुकाबला नहीं है. जो डोगरास आपको हॉस्पिटैलिटी देते हैं ना, I will tell you, that is unbeatable. दिल से करते हैं वो, कश्मीरियों की तरह ड्रामा नहीं करते हैं. they really look after you. मैं ललित जी को पता है, ललित जी knows me, मैं कितना मतलब मुझे कश्मीरी लोग गालियां मारते हैं यार, तू डोगरों की तारीफ कर रहा होता है, मैं बस सही बोलता हूँ यार, दिल से प्यार करते हैं.
नहीं, you are right. डोगरास की तो हॉस्पिटैलिटी है, वो तो
World class.
गेस्ट को दे देगा, खुद जमीन पर सो जाएगा.
सर आई वेंट टू स्विट्जरलैंड, ऑस्ट्रिया, जहाँ की वर्ल्ड फेमस है. डोगरास के सामने वो कुछ भी नहीं है, वो कोई चपरासी भी नहीं है हॉस्पिटैलिटी में.
मेरी के लिए बड़ा अच्छा लगा ये आज आपसे बात करके. फिर आई थिंक कभी और टाइम निकालेंगे.
नहीं, डेफिनेटली सर, मजा आता है. जम्मू के लोग दिल से बात करते हैं, बड़ा अच्छा लगता है.
बड़ा हमें भी बड़ा अच्छा लगा. ऐसा लग रहा है कि हम इकट्ठे बैठ के बात कर रहे हैं, इतने अंदर से भी और बाहर से भी.
जम्मू क्लब में बैठे हुए हैं.
हाँ, जम्मू.
और कपूर टेंट हाउस वाला कश्मीरी मीट भेज रहा है.
मीट भी खाते, देसी चाट ठीक है सारे.
देसी चाट.
See, thank you so much, Govardhan.
Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience before we finish the session would like to ask any question? I think that will be all.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you everybody.
Thank you
General
everybody for joining us today.
Priyanka ji, thank you.
And before
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Before we move further and we finish this session, I would just like to remind everybody that this is a series and we will be back same time next week, which is 6 p.m. on Saturday, India time, and 1:30 p.m. London time. So looking forward to having you back next Saturday. Harbans Singh ji, namaskar.
Thank you. Thank you, Harbans Singh. Govardhan ji Singh.
Great session. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.